Viewer discretion is advised.
Die nicht minder traditionsgefestigte politische Führung der Partei treten und dann werden diese beiden Einrichtungen gemeinsam den deutschen Menschen erziehen und festigen und auf ihren Schultern tragen den deutschen Staat und Völker bei allen
He enters this hotel conference room in Hartford, Connecticut with a security team that rivals a head of state. An adoring audience greets him with calls of daddy and sings his praises. He is 60-year-old José Luis de Jesus Miranda from Puerto Rico, a preacher, an evangelist to be sure, but to his followers and in his own eyes, he's more than a man of God. Just ask him.
I'm Jesus Christ's man in front of you.
That's right. He says he is the second coming. He claims in 1973 he had an epiphany.
When Jesus, the resurrected Jesus, came to me, he integrated himself within me.
So why you?
I don't know.
Biblical scholars agree that Jesus himself spoke about coming back to the earth a second time, what's commonly referred to as the second coming. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus is quoted as saying that we shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with power and great glory. But what it doesn't say is that he'll arrive in Siberia. And yet, that's where one isolated religious community believes he has landed. Clarissa Ward now reports from the heart of Russia with the latest instalment of our series, Faith Matters.
Two white-robed men were standing there among them and said, "Men of Galilee, why are you standing there staring at the sky? Jesus has gone away to heaven, and someday, just as he went, he will return."
Deep in the heart of Siberia's birch forest lies one of the largest and most remote religious communes on the planet, the Church of the Last Testament. More than 5,000 people live in this wilderness. They have left behind their families and their homes to follow this man. He is known simply as Vissarion, meaning he who gives new life, or as the teacher. He has more than 10,000 followers worldwide, and he claims that he is Jesus Christ. Getting to Vissarion's commune is not easy. From New York City, it's more than 4,000 miles to Moscow, the Russian capital. From there, it's another 2,000 miles across 4 time zones.
So we've arrived in the city of Abakan. We're actually closer now to Mongolia than we are to Moscow. We've been flying for 5 hours, and now we're getting ready for the long drive ahead.
Abakan is a bleak city dotted with crumbling Tsarist buildings and Soviet-style blocks. It's also the nearest town to Vissarion's base. Certainly everyone here knew who he was, but they didn't seem to like him much.
Так как он себя представляет полубогом, это все ложь, по моему мнению. Я слышала о том, что там и голодом они сидят, выращивают какие-то овощи.
Once out of the city, the drab concrete of Abakan gives way to rich rolling plains and clear rivers. After hours on the road, we reach Petropavlskaya, where more than 80% of the residents are followers of Vissarion. Life here is very basic. The followers are strict vegetarians and they don't smoke or drink. The houses and churches are built from wood by hand. There are few cars and most energy comes from windmills and solar panels. At the follower school, young boys are taught how to build model ships and young girls learn crochet and singing.
If you're happy and do not enter in and the shout. If you're happy and do not do.
Surrounded by such beautiful nature, it seems an idyllic place for a child. But the portraits of Vissarion that adorned every wall were difficult to ignore. Christmas here has been abolished and replaced by a new celebration on Vissarion's birthday. The biggest holiday of the year takes place on August 18th, the anniversary of the teacher's first sermon. And a new calendar has been introduced which dates from the year of his birth, making this year 48. Vissarion was born Sergei Tarup in 1961. Up until his revelation, he worked as a traffic cop in southern Russia. He started the Church of the Last Testament in 1991, the same year as the collapse of the Soviet Union. It was a desperate and chaotic time. After decades of religious oppression, suddenly thousands of new religions and sects burst onto the scene, all claiming to have the answers that people were so hungrily craving. It was time.
Can you start by telling me some of the main principles of your religion?
Такие же, как и у всех религий. Любить, учиться друг друга люди должны.
Are you Jesus Christ?
Этот ответ не нужен.
What sort of a relationship do you have with your followers?
Они учатся. Стараются следовать всему, что я им открою.
Do you believe in Judgment Day?
Есть время. Определенный период времени, за который должна решаться судьба человеческого общества всего на Земле. Этот период идет. Уже идет.
Maybe you could just tell me something that interests you or our viewers, something that you think might interest Americans.
Мне ничего не интересно говорить. Для них еще время не пришло.
He wouldn't elaborate on what will happen at the end of the period of judgment, nor when that would be. For Vissarion, conventional calendars are meaningless. It seemed the interview was over before it began. I hadn't expected Jesus to be a man of so few words. Leaving, I noticed a quad bike parked out front. It seemed ironic when his followers were trekking up and down the mountain. I felt inexplicably disappointed, and I wondered about what the future would hold for his devoted community. Yet the number of Vissarion's followers continues to grow, as more and more people abandon their lives and flock to this small corner of the world, and to this chameleon of a man. Vissarion, the teacher, Jesus Christ, or perhaps just Sergei Tarup, the self-proclaimed Messiah of Siberia. I'm Clarissa Ward for Nightline in Siberia, Russia.
The last stop on our journey is Kenya. Here too there are said to be healing waters, but we have come to visit an unusual woman who is well known throughout the country and venerated by many people. Mary Sinaida Akatsa. She is a person full of faith and a powerful joy of life, which she passes on to many people. Members of the church she founded wear white and blue gowns. Mary Akatsa says that Jesus himself gave her these colors as a sign, in order that one could identify oneself as a child of God under one faith. Three times a week, she gives healing ceremonies in Kawangware, a slum in Nairobi, with prayers, songs, and preaching. Here, on June the 11th, 1988, an extraordinary event took place, which many newspapers and the TV station CNN reported. The people believed that Jesus Christ had personally appeared before them. A journalist from the magazine Kenya Times was an eyewitness. His report starts a week before the event.
On Saturday, June the 4th, 1988, a big bright star was sighted above the skies by worshippers.
While we were filming, the unusually bright star could also be seen during the day. During the healing session on June the 11th, 1988, the mysterious event took place, which was observed by hundreds of people. Many were left totally healed. Only a few photos exist.
The tall figure of a barefooted, white-robed and bearded man appeared from nowhere and stood in the middle of the crowd.
Watu wote walianguka chini, wakajawa wengine na furaha, wengine wakajawa na kilio kwa maana wameona kile hawajaona tangu wazaliwe.
When he appeared, people had no idea what was happening. Many of them fell down. Others began to cry and repent their sins, and continued to do so even after Jesus had disappeared, and we had begun singing new healing songs again. Since that day, hordes of people have been coming to Kawangware, repenting their sins and being healed and saved. But it is not me who heals, it is the power of God that heals through me.
It appeared to them the Son of Man had at last fulfilled his promise of coming back to earth.
The unknown person who didn't tell his name turned first to Mary Akatsa. He said, "You are an important messenger of God. Keep on preaching, never retreat. Whoever places obstacles in your path will himself be halted." Then the man spoke in Swahili without an accent to the crowd.
We are nearing the time for the reign of heaven. But before that, I shall come back and bring a bucket full of blessing for all of you.
Before he disappeared as suddenly as he had come, he paced off a path in the direction of the church. Jesus said, "I have put my garment here at the end of this path, and whoever comes to this place, perhaps with sickness or demons or other problems, should run along this path. When he returns at the end and runs back to Mary, all his problems will vanish, and he will be free." Since that day, God speaks to me. I can hear him through my ears, like somebody talking next to me. It is very loud. Before my eyes, there appears a sort of screen, and I am told, "Look there, or there. There is someone in the congregation. Look at him." The message is written on his chest. I can then read all the problems this person has and where they stem from. Then I ask for him to be saved, and he is healed. I get the message directly from God.
Hi, and you're now with the Forerunner Chronicles. On January 14th of 2010, a man by the name of Benjamin Creme in London, England made a very startling statement. Now, Benjamin Creme is known as the John the Baptist of the New Age movement. If you've ever doubted as to whether or not the activities of the New Age movement and secret societies have any major role in instigating the construction of a New World Order, well, you can put that doubt out of your mind as of right now. Please, pay extremely close attention to what you are about to see in this video, because it may very well be able to save your life. What you're about to see is the truth.
For over 30 years, artist, author and lecturer Benjamin Creme has been preparing the way for the biggest event in history, the emergence of Maitreya the World Teacher and his group, the Masters of Wisdom. Millions of people have heard his information and wait expectantly for this momentous event. On the 12th of December 2008, Share International Foundation distributed a news release announcing that in the very near future, a large bright star would appear in the sky, visible throughout the planet night and day, a sign of Maitreya's imminent open emergence. The star, the herald of Maitreya, seen throughout the world, has done its work. At his latest public lecture at Friends House, Euston Road, London, on the 14th of January 2010, Benjamin Creme made the following announcement.
Maitreya recently gave his first interview in America, the first of many such interviews. He followed in Japan and Europe and so on. The master of all the masters, for the first time in human history, himself physically came on a well-known television program in a major network in the United States, but undeclared as Maitreya, just as one of us. And he gave that interview. It would be watched probably by many millions. And that's the first time such an event has ever happened. Can you imagine what it means? For the first time in human history, the world teacher not only can come himself, but can speak to the world through the linked television channels of the world and address all humanity. His name is Maitreya, but he will not use that name until enough people are responding to him and what is called the Day of Declaration has arrived. Then Maitreya will come before the world on the Day of Declaration and acknowledge his true status. We can only afford one world. That world has to be one in fact and in deed and at peace. And the only way to get peace is to create justice. So the only way to get justice is to have trust. How do you get trust? There will never be justice if there's no trust. So the only way to create trust is to share the resources of the world. This is the year of the tiger. And the year of the tiger, according to Maitreya, is a year in which great things take place. Great big things take place. The tiger brings about big change. And humanity will wake up in this year and from now on and will demand of its governments changes which up till now it thought it would never get. And the world will undergo quickly a change set in motion in this coming year by humanity itself.
If the Christ or Buddha returned today, would you recognize him? The one awaited by all major religions has come when we least expected it. He is ready to emerge openly very soon. Look for a bright star shining in the sky night and day as a sign of his public emergence.
taught the sun where to stand in the morning? And who told the ocean you can only come this far? And who showed the moon where to hide till evening? Whose words alone can catch a falling star? Well, I know my Redeemer lives. I know my Redeemer lives. All of creation testify, this life within me cry, I know my Redeemer lives. Yeah, the very same God that spins things in orbit, He runs to the weary, the worn and the weak, and the same gentle hand that holds me when I'm broken. He conquered death to bring me victory. Well, I know my Redeemer lives. I know my Redeemer lives. All of creation testify, this life
Two Palestinian suicide bombers attacked a remote Israeli town. One person was killed, 9 other people were hurt. Shortly after the bombing, Israeli aircraft struck a car in northern Gaza, killing a top wanted militant.
Israelis, 1.5 million, are sitting inside bomb shelters, and all of the Israelis have been killed have been those who have come out for air from the bomb shelters.
Hamas has wasted no time in indoctrinating the minds of young children who have been recruited to hate Israel. Young babies and toddlers dressed as suicide bombers, all in the name of jihad and martyrdom.
Youngsters who watch as the death of every Palestinian fighter is celebrated as martyrdom. Teenagers who welcome the prospect of dying for the cause with bravado.
I don't really think the weapons of mass destruction were the sole reason for the war.
President Bush said on March 17th of last year, 3 days before the war started with Iraq.
Intelligence gathered by this and other governments leaves no doubt that the Iraqi regime continues to possess and conceal some of the most lethal weapons ever devised.
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere.
Nope, no weapons over there.
Maybe under here.
The Iraqi regime continues to possess and conceal some of the most lethal weapons ever devised.
I thank the gentleman. I rise in opposition of this bill, but I would like to clarify something. We're not trying to scare kids. This president's foreign policy is what's scaring the kids of this country. And that people have said today, why are people believing this? Why are people believing this big internet hoax? Well, it's the same people that told us Saddam Hussein had something to do with 9/11. Same people that told us Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. Same people that told us we were going to be able to use the oil for reconstruction money. Same people that told us that we'd be greeted as liberators, not occupiers. Same people, same president that told us the Taliban is gone. Same president that told us that Poland is our ally 2 days before they pull out. Same president that tells us Iraq is going just great. Same president that tells us the economy is going just great. Same people that told us the tax cut was going to create millions of jobs. Same people that told us that the Medicare program only cost $400 billion when it really cost $540 billion. So please forgive us for not believing what you're saying. Please forgive the students of this country for not believing what you're saying. Not one thing about this war that has been told to the American people or that has been told to these college students has been true. Not one thing. Bremer says we need more troops. The Pentagon says we need more troops. And this president can't get them from the international community. There's only one option left. Let's be honest with the American people. I yield back the balance.
Afghanistan is growing. More US-led air raids that have killed more innocent civilians.
The increased number of civilian casualties after US airstrikes.
There is anger in the province of Ghazni. 2 civilians were killed.
5 women and 2 children were among those killed.
Dozens of casualties brought to the main hospital in Kandahar city.
35 civilians were killed and 38 injured.
Between 70 and 100 people are dead.
More than 130 Afghan civilians have been killed.
Nearly 700 civilians were killed.
2,000 civilians were killed in this conflict last year.
Unfortunately, a battlefield is a very messy place, and it's very hard to tell people from each other.
The airstrike was precision munitions fired from the air away from the civilian population on 2 individuals that were firing on the coalition forces. So it wasn't on the homes or in the area where it would put civilians at risk.
Local residents have said the attacks killed nearly 150 people. The U.S. military says such figures are grossly exaggerated, and further airstrikes against the Taliban have not been ruled out by the Obama administration.
Afghans see this around them. They understand, they know, they see the bombing, and on the one hand they're being told that the U.S. is there to liberate them from the Taliban and to defeat the Taliban. On the other hand, they have these bombs dropping and killing them and their fellow villagers.
I think when you go in and you talk to most families who have been affected by an incident, or those in a community who have seen their neighbor killed or injured, what they'll say to me is, you know, they came in, they promised us they would bring peace, and they would help us. And now look, all they're doing is killing innocent civilians.
داسې د کسانو لپاره دغه زموږ کلی چې دي تقریبا 2000 کوره دي په 2 کورونه پکې کوم سرایونه دي کوم باغونه دي ټوله یې کډوالي دي
افغانان هم راسره ستا پښې هم پرې دي ستا لاسونه هم پرې دي ستا شهیدان هم ستا وروره شهید زموږ سره ستا خو دغه څه شوی دی خو دا جنګونه دي دا بمبار دي سرایونه راباندې لګېدلي دي دا یو ټک یو طالب یو ټک وکړي چې دلته یو ټک پر دغه ځای وکړي راسه بس دغه ځای دا مؤمنان دي دا خو نه ور معلومېږي چې دلته څوک هغه خو ولاړې خپل پر لار دلته دا مؤمنان باندې پر لار دي پارچو دا کلي بمباروي دا مسجد بمباروي ولې ته دا ګناهکار او بېګناه خلک د امنیت ځای د امنیته ځایدات نه پېژني ولس نه پېژني د مؤمنان نه پېژني په دغه جراوت کې د روزګان په ولایت کې د ښځو د نرانو د دوی د کوچنیو د سپو د حیوانانو غوښه نه وه سره ګډ
ستاسو په فامیل کې هسې څوک نشته چې په دې بمباري کې وژل شوي او یا تکلیف شوي
شته دغه چې خلک شته چې اوس پښې یې پرې شوی دي کتل شوي دي لاسونه یې پرې شوي دي 3 نفره شهیدان شوي دي هغه شته ولې نشته چې بمبار اوس هغه شهید نه پرنده پرې کېږي یا پښې نه پرې کېږي لاس یې نه پرې کېږي هغه خو خامخا کېږي په دغه کارو باندې
ولې ما وژني دا ولې زما سیاسر وژني ولې زما پښتني وژني او زما ماشوم وژني نو دوی چې ټکان کوي پر طالب دي باندې وکړي هغه دي وژني ما دي وژني نو دوی چې کوي نو بل دې چې خپل دښمن دی وبدي
یا د وړو یا د غړو موږ اشکال د لیمرو بل چا هم نه لر خپل وطن ته هم نو تلای د بمبار د لاسه د امریکایانو د لاسه
دغه مهال دی په دغه حال کې داسې دا کړلي دي ورور
تیارې بمبار باندې وکړي
تیارې بمبار یې وکړي دا دوه کاله
کېږي
زه دانې یتیمان لرم سپین ږیری مې شهید سو ورور مې شهید سو دا مؤمنانو ماشومان یې راته پاته سو زه دلته مریض یم وږی تږی دي اریانان داسې غمخور نه لرو چې موږ ته
په یلمن کې مو داسې کارونه سم وه چې بزګري مو کول تاریاک مو کرل مثال د یو چا بزګر به و ام به مو بوټی و ام به مو بله لار و ام به مو روپۍ وې هر کار مو سم و دلته چې رالو نه بزګري کولی سو
چې زما په ملک کې جنګونه نه وای دغه نه وای ازادي وای خو برته تلم خپل وطن ته تلم اوس خو هم جنګونه دي هم دغه دي اوس نسم تلای هغه خپل بزګري به مې کوله، یو غنم به مې کرله، یو تاریاک به مې کرله، یو جواري به مې کرله، یو پالیز به مې کرله. دا مومنان مې ساتلي وای. اوس هېڅ کار نه شم کولی. هېڅوک په کار یې نه. دا مومنان مې ګوره لڅ پښې دي په دا واورو کې، په دا اوبو کې شی نه لرم. د در په در یم، د نوک نوک یم، بیا یم. پر بیریږم چې دغه مومنان دي. دا زه څنګه چې مریدان ولاکه څه کوي. په دغه یو نیم لاک یې ورکوم، دا څوک یې دغه په دا ګرده کیم کې څوک یې نه کوي. نو زه څنګه وکړم؟ د خدای روی ته وګوره دغه کوچناکه مومنه زه په هغه یو نیم لاک ورکوم چې څوک یې رانیسي. نو چې نیکي زه څه وکړم؟ پورونه راباندې، دارونه راباندې، نه یو توس لرم، نه یو شړۍ لرم، نه هېڅ شی، نه تلتک شته، نه یو بوټ شته، نه یو وړه شته، هېڅ شی هم نشته چې زه د دوی په خوله کې ورکړم. نه یو ټاټ شته، نه یو شی شته. زه ورته هم چارې غواړي هغه ته زه ورکوم. د خدای په لاس مفلس یم چې مفلس نه یم، په 15 لکه مې دا خپل لور نه خرڅول. دغه ماشومه دا پرمن زه نه خرڅوم، مګر اوس احتیاج یم.
هلته په وطن کې د بمبار د لاسه مړه وو او دلته چې سولو دلته مو په یخ وژني.
دا ګوره دغه بمبار کې ټول کړي دي، دغه اوس ګور دغه اوس خوري،
دلته ټول کړي دي خوري، خو نسته شی نسته، نو څه وکړو؟
په دا کچرو کې ټولې
او ډوډۍ د ټول کړي دلته وچ ټول کې قرار یې خوري.
لچیب شي لچیب وږي لا ته ګوري په ژړا او په افسوس سرساره پر ماتې زه چیرې ورسم. ما ول خدای کوي یا تاسې مې حلال کوي یا تاسې یو تر خاورې لاندې مې کوي.
وږي داري ناستې کې خو مرګ نښځي، نو دا ژوند خبره څه؟
داسې افسوس دی.
نو سړی خپل په مرګ نه دی خوشحاله. زه د خدای په کور کې دغه ما ویلي په لمانځه باندې درېدی یم چې خدای دې ما نه سره مرګ راکړي، دا ژوند نه کوي. په رسول ستی د ګناه زما وږي دي مسلمانان نو وایي په دې چې میمنان مې وږي ډوډۍ نه شی نه.
I can see your tears.
Civilians get caught in the middle. They're the ones who are getting killed, displaced, their houses destroyed, their farms ruined, their opportunities disappearing. So that is precisely the kind of conduct on the part of the American military that causes civilians to take the other side, so that we are converting every day villagers who might have been on our side, villagers who probably once were on our side, now go over to the Taliban, because what else can they do when they see what's happening to their country but fight against those who seem to be doing the most damage, and that's us.
The Americans must leave Afghanistan. That is what these demonstrators are demanding. Protests such as this one in Jalalabad are becoming ever more frequent across the country.
The facts on the ground show that when you drop bombs and you kill civilians, you make people more angry and you increase their desire to hurt Americans.
In the first couple of years of our occupation of Afghanistan, suicide terrorism hardly existed in Afghanistan. And then suddenly, in 2006, there were 92 completed suicide attacks in Afghanistan. In 2007, over 140, 2008, over 130. 80% of these are directed explicitly, directly against American and Western combat forces.
What would you expect from those children who lost their feet or their arm or their mother or their father during that kind of bombing? What would you expect from them? Do you expect them to join the peace process? Do you expect them to say, I have excused you?
امریکایان موږ ته هیڅ فایده نه کوي چې امریکایان راله پر موږ باندې دا شپه جوړ شي. دغه امریکایان نه وو کرار راځي و د ځمکه او هغه اسمان وو پر موږ باندې چې دغه امریکایان راله دا چې ګرد خلک یې تر هغه
اوس افغانستان نه دی لا کنډوالي دي. چې دوی خپل پر سر باندې زور.
تاسو پر کورو باندې چا بمباري وکړله؟ امریکایانو؟
زه غواړم چې د افغانستان خارجیان ووایي دا حال پر موږ باندې خوښ نه دی، هېچا خوښ نه دی. بابا ما ته څه پیغام ورکړي؟ بابا ما ته بس دغه پیغام ورکړي چې ولاد مو دلته خپل فوج وباسي په خوشحالي اخر یې وخت وځي چې وځي اوس چې لا وځي ښه په خوشحالي دې وځي په ځای کې ملک ته پرېږدي موږ ګرده داسې کړو چا ګوتې نشته ګوره دا زما ګوته ښه د هغه بخت الله چا پښې نشته چا سترګې نشته چا لاسونه نشته ګرده تنې خلک خراب درده دره
When I was in Iraq, I saw the devastation that our invasion and occupation had met out upon the Iraqi people. I saw and at times participated in the dehumanization and degradation of the Iraqi people. By robbing others of their inherent dignity, by denying them respect, and by treating them as the less than human other, we ultimately robbed ourselves of our own dignity, humanity, and compassion.
You roll into Baghdad, every single big apartment building is blown up. Every single apartment building in Baghdad has been broken to the ground by artillery and airplanes bombing. You cannot meet someone in Iraq who has not lost a family member. Could you imagine what we had done in America if in 9/11 everybody in America lost a family member? What would we be doing? Would we be talking about war? No, we'd be in the streets with weapons. And so people talk about, oh, these people killing American soldiers in Iraq, they're terrorists. Not terrorists, they're wearing sandals. And they got an AK. And they got 14-year-old boys building bombs to kill these American soldiers because we killed their family.
People just don't wake up and want to go kill people. I was ordered multiple times by commissioned officers and non-commissioned officers to shoot unarmed civilians if their presence made me feel uncomfortable. The primary loyalty is not to democracy or to the flag or to America or to the Iraqi people or to the rule of law. It is to each other's safety at the expense of everything else.
There is a cost to this war, and this cost is being paid in American blood, in my soldiers' blood, and that is not okay.
From my perspective, it didn't seem to make any sense what we did. We didn't accomplish anything.
A few months after I was there, I mean, a lot of things weren't sitting right with me. The command structure, the missions that we were getting didn't make any sense. We're going after people, Mujahideen or Muj, and they didn't have any idea which ones were the right ones. We're kicking in the wrong doors, terrifying children, helicopters screaming over their heads at night, and I'm trying to calm the women and children while the men were dragged and separated out and completely humiliated in front of their families.
9/11 was a lie, I know it. We're soldiers, we know it.
And on March 21st of 2003, my military service was hijacked in an unconstitutional order to invade the sovereign nation of Iraq. This is a slap in the face to every service member who feels used because he was told he was going to go fight for his country and then was sent to go kick in the doors of innocent people unprovoked in the middle of the night to draw fire into their house so that we might have somebody to shoot back at.
If the media was not biased, this film would be shown here so that you could then make a decision. Show them both sides of the story and then let the human being make the decision whether they want their kids there or not. Don't show me one side and say it's patriotism, it's courageous. Nothing I did in Iraq was courageous. I brought fear into people's homes. I traveled with a .50 caliber weapon every single day and slept with a pistol underneath my pillow. Tell me what is so courageous.
Responsibility to the honor of this country and to the honor of every man and woman who has served in Iraq and ever served in our military, to not leave them with anything less than the honor that they deserve.
Honor? Are you kidding me? You saying that it's an honor to die in Iraq and to fight a war that we started and we're in the wrong? You're going to tell me that it's an honor to serve in Iraq when private contractors get paid $100,000 plus and drive $60,000 vehicles inside the base while soldiers are outside the base rolling and patrolling and losing their lives? Is that honor? Are you kidding?
I had a personal experience after one of the talks that I did with a man. He came up to me after that and he told me he was an Iraqi man. and he said that he was from the area around Balad, and I was stationed in Balad, and I just couldn't help it. Just all of a sudden, I hugged the guy, and I said that I was sorry, that I was so sorry, and I ended up crying right there to this perfect stranger, and he told me it was okay. You know, he told me it was okay, and that was redemption.
And I tried hard to be proud of my service, but all I could feel was shame. And racism could no longer mask the reality of the occupation. These were people, these were human beings. I've since been plagued by guilt anytime I see an elderly man, like the one who couldn't walk, who we rolled onto a stretcher and told the Iraqi police to take him away. I feel guilt anytime I see a mother with her children, like the one who cried hysterically and screamed that we are worse than Saddam as we forced her from her home. I feel guilt anytime I see a young girl, like the one I grabbed by the arm and dragged into the street. We were told we were fighting terrorists. The real terrorist was me, and the real terrorism is this occupation. Racism within the military has long been an important tool to justify the destruction and occupation of another country. It has long been used to justify the killing, subjugation, and torture of another people. Racism is a vital weapon employed by this government. It is a more important weapon than a rifle, a tank, a bomber, or a battleship. It is more destructive than an artillery shell, or a bunker buster, or a Tomahawk missile. While all those weapons are created and owned by this government, they are harmless without people willing to use them. Those who send us to war do not have to pull a trigger or lob a mortar round. They do not have to fight the war, they merely have to sell the war. They need a public who is willing to send their soldiers into harm's way. They need soldiers who are willing to kill and be killed without question. They can spend millions on a single bomb, but that bomb only becomes a weapon when the ranks of the military are willing to follow orders to use it. They can send every last soldier anywhere on earth, but there will only be a war if soldiers are willing to fight. And the ruling class, the billionaires who profit from human suffering, care only about expanding their wealth, controlling the world economy. Understand that their power lies only in their ability to convince us that war, oppression, and exploitation is in our interest. They understand that their wealth is dependent on their ability to convince the working class to die to control the market of another country. And convincing us to kill and die is based on their ability to make us think that we are somehow superior. Soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen have nothing to gain from this occupation. The vast majority of people living in the U.S. have nothing to gain from this occupation. In fact, not only do we have nothing to gain, but we suffer more because of it. We lose limbs, endure trauma, and give our lives. Our families have to watch flag-draped coffins lowered into the earth. Millions in this country without health care, jobs, or access to education must watch this government squander over $450 million a day on this occupation. Poor and working people in this country are sent to kill poor and working people in another country to make the rich richer. And without racism, soldiers would realize that they have more in common with the Iraqi people than they do with the billionaires who send us to war. I threw families onto the street in Iraq, only to come home and find families thrown onto the street in this country, in this tragic and unnecessary foreclosure crisis. We need to wake up and realize that our real enemies are not in some distant land. They're not people whose names we don't know and cultures we don't understand. The enemy is people we know very well and people we can identify. The enemy is a system that wages war when it's profitable. The enemy is the CEOs who lay us off from our jobs when it's profitable. It's the insurance companies who deny us health care when it's profitable. It's the banks who take away our homes when it's profitable. Our enemy is not 5,000 miles away. They are right here at home. If we organize and fight with our sisters and brothers, we can stop this war, we can stop this government, and we can create a better world.
He's an architect experienced in steel structures. Now Richard Gage is touring the country with a controversial message about September 11th.
Richard Gage is here to show us why he's calling for a more thorough investigation into the collapse of the World Trade Center buildings. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're very welcome. It's great to be here.
Well, first of all, give us a little bit more about your background.
Well, I'm an architect of 20 years, member of the American Institute of Architects, and I've been studying steel-framed, fireproof buildings for about that long.
We ask that for clarification because as we get into this, we want people to make sure that you're not just somebody with a wacky idea.
Right.
Okay? You come with some science to you. What is the official reason for the collapse of the World Trade Center towers?
Well, we're told that the planes hit the buildings and there was an explosion and a fire, and about an hour and a half later, in the case of the North Tower, the buildings collapsed due to structural weakening due to the fires. The problem is that we don't have large gradual deformations associated with collapses, and fires in high-rises have never brought down a steel frame high-rise building at all, ever. And what we have, unfortunately, is the evidence in the Twin Towers and the third skyscraper to collapse that day, which most people don't know anything about it. We have the evidence of the 10 key features of controlled demolition. In the case of Building 7, it collapses straight down into its own footprint at free fall speed in the first 100 feet. It's dropping, as you can see, symmetrically, smoothly, at free fall speed in the first 100 feet, 2.5 seconds. This is uncanny. There's 40,000 tons of structural steel designed to resist this collapse.
Is it, what, a 47-story building?
Yeah, this is called Building 7, right a football field away from the Twin Towers.
Oh, okay, so what we're showing is left what happened. In fact, right is a controlled where you are using, or the people who made this happen, used demolition.
Indeed, and it's a direct comparison. And you can see that, indeed, almost free fall speed, free fall acceleration through 40,000 tons of structural steel. That is uncanny. So we have 700 architects and engineers demanding a new investigation as a result of this evidence and the evidence in the World Trade Center. That is very explosive. Almost every architect and engineer we show this information to agrees with us that these are controlled demolitions. If we can get them to look at the information, because obviously the implications of a controlled demolition are dark for our country, because that means somebody besides Al-Qaeda was involved, because these have to be easily 3 of the most highly secure buildings outside the Pentagon.
Now, if that was a controlled demolition, would there not be any evidence at the ground level of explosives within the building itself, that's the debris that's left?
Indeed, and what we find down there is pools of molten iron.
What does that mean?
Several tons. Exactly. What is that doing there? The first responders see it, the structural engineers see it. It's documented by FEMA, the melting of steel. Normal office fires is what's supposed to have brought these buildings down, along with jet plane impacts. But jet fuel and office fires don't produce molten iron or molten steel. It doesn't begin to melt until 3,000 degrees. But what we have is the fires only produce maybe 1,600 degrees. So what produced all that molten iron? Well, it has in it the chemical evidence of a special incendiary, which is thermite, a high-tech incendiary used to cut through steel like a hot knife through butter. Indeed. In all of the dust throughout lower Manhattan, we have a 4 to 6 inch thick layer of this dust, and throughout it we have evidence of tiny spheres, billions of them, several tons of previously molten iron. Well, how does that happen? If you have molten iron, the byproduct of thermite is molten iron, and it's dispersed throughout all of this dust.
Now, you were allowed to go in and get samples and examine it?
Oh, there's plenty of dust. A lot of people have this dust, and 4 of these samples have been sent to physicist Stephen Jones, formerly of Brigham Young University. And they find in it not only these spheres, which others have found too, USGS, R.J. Lee, doing toxicological studies. These spheres have iron, aluminum, fluorine, manganese, very unusual elements associated only with thermite. And there's small chips of unignited thermite as well. This is very high-tech thermite, nanothermite. It's not found in a cave in Afghanistan. It's produced in very sophisticated Defense Department contracting laboratories.
Okay, well, we have an enemy here. That the finger has been pointed to, that this was the work of al-Qaeda. This was the work of Osama bin Laden, at least to get the planes all going into the buildings and into the field in Pennsylvania and into the Pentagon. Is there no way that they then could still be the enemy that placed those in the buildings first and then did the incendiary device via a plane second?
Right. Well, what you have to ask is who had access to the buildings? Did al-Qaeda have access to these highly secure buildings? Probably not. Did they have access to sophisticated nanothermite, where the particles are 1,000 times smaller than a human hair? Probably not. Somebody else has to be investigated, and that's why we have 700 architects and engineers demanding a real investigation. We don't have the whole theory as to how this happened, who did it, why. We just lay out the facts like we did last night in the Veterans Memorial Auditorium, and we demand a real investigation, and they'll find out who, why, how, etc.
Okay. Then let me ask you, I'm person X. I want to place something in one of those buildings. Where would I carry it? How big would it be? Is it that visible that I would be spotted by security? Or could I place it in one of my tooth fillings?
Yeah. We're talking about several tons of nanothermite and ordinary thermite. One would have to have access through security. So the security company involved for the World Trade Center should be thoroughly investigated. And it turns out to be Securicom, Stratosec. Somebody should look and see who's on the board of those companies. Some very interesting individuals turn out to be. In addition, one would have to have the cover of, say, an elevator modernization, which was, in fact, going on 9 months prior to 9/11, so that there were workers throughout the World Trade Center that had access to the hoistway, which is immediately adjacent to the core columns and beams in the building.
You're not trying to freak out the country, but you can't help but feel a little freaked out by this.
Yeah, you're getting it.
Yeah. And, of course, this is something we want to talk with you about a whole lot more, and we're out of time. But we do have a great deal of information on our website, kmph.com. Thank you very much for your time today.
You're so welcome.
Thank you for
opening up a lot to think about. We'll be right back.
Crazy. We get the first rain since November. We get absolutely massive hailstones.
It's supposed to be the coldest weather on record in 1,000 years.
What reasons do we have for this? Is this climate change? What's going on?
We don't really know. The experts don't even know.
Good evening. Now it's in the books forever, or at least until the next winter, as powerful and relentless as this one. It really will be spring before some of this snow is gone. This last storm, which grew way beyond what even our crack meteorologists saw coming, cemented this winter in our history, cemented millions of people inside their home. Look at the size of this thing as seen from space. Records fell.
Biggest snowfall in recorded history.
100 million people will be impacted by this storm. That's 1/3 the population of the United States.
Sprays of freezing water from Lake Erie shrouded a lighthouse near Cleveland, Ohio.
Unusually cold weather continues to pound the eastern half of the United States, and it is very serious. It's pushing temperatures well below normal.
Britain remains in the grip of the big freeze tonight, and there is little sign of it easing. Heavy snow brought large parts of the UK to a standstill again today, with airports closed, motorways shut, and tonight, ice is the big worry as temperatures plunge to as low as -7 or 8.
The catastrophic earthquake in Chile was so powerful, it knocked the Earth off of its axis and shortened the length of the day.
Tonight there is another measure of how powerful this earthquake was. Listen to this. It moved so much mass on the planet that government scientists estimate it moved the Earth off its axis by about 3 inches, and as a result shortened the day by a few millionths of a second. The quake raised the ground level of one island in Chile by 6 feet. And it most certainly turned the lives of millions, as we've seen, upside down.
Australia is experiencing one of the worst floods in the past 70 years. The BBC says the flooding has reached biblical proportions.
Evacuations are underway in far north Queensland as locals and tourists flee the path of monster cyclone Yasi. Much of the Cairns CBD is expected to go underwater when the biggest cyclone in the state's history crosses the coast early Thursday.
Our planet is gearing up for its largest magnetic storm in years, due to arrive later today. A number of scientists have warned of possible technological catastrophe.
Back now to our top story, a terrible mystery gripping the world right now. Birds, fish, and all kinds of creatures just dropping dead in huge numbers for what seems like no reason.
Just when you thought there couldn't be more change going on in the world, it turns out magnetic north is moving. Aviators knew this. It's always moved, but not like this. In fact, it's on the move about 40 miles a year now along the polar cap toward Russia.
But this is all a sign of the apocalypse.
Are feared dead after a powerful earthquake hits Haiti in the Caribbean, the worst for 200 years.
Millions of people in the U.S. felt the effect of a powerful earthquake that struck Mexico Sunday afternoon.
A 9.0 magnitude quake struck under the Indian Ocean December 26th.
Down in New Zealand, everyone, as a result of a powerful 7.4 earthquake they've had there.
Devastation in Japan is making headlines around the world as the country recovers from the 8.9 magnitude earthquake that sent a tsunami crashing over the mainland.
A major tsunami has struck northeastern Japan
In an event that geologists call historic. It all started with an 8.9 magnitude quake that hit around 2:45 p.m. local time in Japan, 12:45 in the morning here on the East Coast. It is the largest recorded quake in Japan's history. It is also the 5th strongest quake in the world in the past 111 years. And there have been at least 19 aftershocks, including several stronger than last month's devastating quake in New Zealand.
Yes, there are earthquakes from time to time, but we have never, ever felt anything on the magnitude, the literal magnitude of what we experienced today.
As we are talking, we are looking at this extraordinary wave, another tsunami wave, moving toward the Japanese coast.
And as we mentioned, a tsunami warning has now been extended to include Hawaii and spots all along the U.S. west coast. That's right. When it starts to hit the continental shelf, it speeds up. It moves as fast as 500 miles an hour, the speed of a jumbo jet.
As you can see in the pictures, you have massive walls of waves just eating up everything in its path.
The catastrophic earthquake in Chile was so powerful, it knocked the Earth off of its axis and shortened the length of the day.
Come to your TV right now because this is our Weather Watch 12 camera. We're catching a meteor, possible meteor, most likely.
A video has been released showing a howling fireball streaking through the sky above America's Midwest late last night. The U.S. National Weather Service has confirmed that the light was a meteor. The phenomenon was apparently seen by dozens across 5 states, and many also reported hearing a thundering sound.
What is that on screen? No astronomer has seen this before. Scientists say they're clueless about what it might be. Back on the screen, what is it?
We don't know. We are stumped. Scientists around the world are saying, what the heck is this object? It doesn't fit any of the profiles of the usual suspects. That's the problem.
The usual suspects are comets, meteor,
stars, galaxies, planets.
How about some sort of alien dealio? You buy into that?
Well, you know, the object is about the size of the Rose Bowl Stadium. So it's too small to be a planet or a star or a galaxy. And it's not a comet. There's no gas in the tail of that comet. It's not a meteor because it's not inside the Earth's atmosphere. So what is it? We're scratching our head. The only thing we can think of at the present time is a once-in-a-lifetime event, the collision of 2 asteroids in space. We've never seen that before. That's right. A month ago, we spotted this little speck doing all sorts of shenanigans that it shouldn't be doing. The Hubble Space Telescope zooms in on it, and our jaws hit the floor. At that point, we're saying...
Now, it's called the P/2010 A2. And you say that's short for...
We are clueless.
On March 19th, the moon's orbit will be 221,000 miles from Earth, the closest it's been in 19 years. It's called the supermoon, a term coined by Richard Noley for when the moon's orbit is nearest the Earth, and the sun, moon, and Earth are all in alignment. That means the gravitational pulls of the moon and sun combine to cause higher tides. This kind of alignment only happens every 10 to 20 years, so when it does, KGTV says we notice.
There is a precedent. The deadly tsunami in Indonesia happened 2 weeks before the 2005 supermoon, and Cyclone Tracy laid waste to Australia during the supermoon year of 1974. There were also extreme weather events in the supermoon years of 1955 and 1992.
Talk of the supermoon began weeks before the earthquake hit Japan.
However, most astronomers say this is just coincidence.
Our planet is gearing up for its largest magnetic storm in years, due to arrive later today. A number of scientists have warned of possible technological catastrophe.
Hey everybody, this is the massive solar flare that took place today, February 13th. Check this out. Does that not look like the red horse of the apocalypse? That is the massive CME that was ejected off the surface of the sun today. They say it was close to an X-class, which is huge.
I give myself away. I give myself away.
Imagine, Islamic soldiers force your 10-year-old son to gather wood for a fire. The soldiers pressure him to convert to Islam. When he refuses, he's thrown on the burning wood he collected and left to die.
They told me I would be released if I became a Muslim. I told them that was not possible. I am a Christian, so they threw me on the fire.
Your son escapes, but the scars remain, a reminder of his sacrifice. Imagine, your teenage daughter goes to Bible camp. On the second day, the students are attacked. One of the attackers secures her hands behind her back, while another holds a piece of broken glass to her stomach. She's told to deny Christ.
I did not answer him.
so he pressed the glass harder against me. Do you believe your God can help you? He asked.
Gripped with fear, she cries out, "Help me, Lord, I do not want to deny you." Imagine, your pastor has refused to register his church with the government. During the service, he's dragged from the church and beaten by the local police. When the officers find a Bible hidden in his shirt, he's beaten with it.
After returning home, I felt pain all over my body. It was almost numb at the beginning, but later became so painful that I could not sleep.
It is the 5th time he's been arrested. If he's caught again, the police say they will kill him. Every day, thousands of Christians are persecuted for their faith. Hundreds are martyred, about 1 every 3 minutes. They're not heroes or statistics, they're family. In over 40 nations around the globe, our family is assaulted for their testimony of Jesus Christ. In most instances, the persecution could have been averted if they had simply denied Christ. But they didn't, and they won't. In Sudan, an Islamic army set on jihad, or holy war, has systematically targeted Christians. Death and suffering can be seen throughout the countryside. Countless Christians are being displaced within their own country. Fleeing from persecution, they've lost everything, often arriving at refugee camps with nothing more than the clothes on their backs. In spite of heavy persecution, the church in Sudan continues growing at astonishing rates. Many of the believers bear the scars of their faith, but they also bear a testimony to God's faithfulness. Over 500 churches have been destroyed in Indonesia. On the island of Ambon, Christians have been massacred in a so-called religious cleansing by radical Muslims. Facing increased persecution, pastors in Jakarta have encouraged their congregations to stand firm, confident that their suffering is a prelude to coming revival. With the fall of communism in Eastern Europe, many have hailed its defeat. But Christians in North Korea, Vietnam, Laos, or China would disagree. Hmong villagers have been imprisoned in Vietnam and Laos after converting to Christianity. Some have had boiling water poured down their throats for simply possessing a Bible in their own language. The Hmong tribe is the largest in Southeast Asia, numbering 10 million. Meeting secretly in homes, more than 2 million have recently committed their lives to Christ. The persecution facing our brothers and sisters is not a human tragedy. It's a spiritual reality facing the body of Christ. We may not be able to stop the attacks, but we can ease their pain. Through prayer, encouragement, and practical assistance, we can fellowship in their suffering. We can show them that they are not forgotten. It's hard to ignore their pain after you hear their cries.
Benar-benar kita semua teriak. Teriak, Tuhan tolong, Tuhan tolong.
Dear brothers and sisters, now is the time to open your eyes. In a stunning move that has civil libertarians stuttering with disbelief, the U.S. Senate has just passed a bill that effectively ends the Bill of Rights in America. The National Defense Authorization Act is being called the most traitorous act ever witnessed in the Senate, and the language of the bill is cleverly designed to make you think it doesn't apply to Americans. But toward the end of the bill, it essentially says it can apply to Americans if we want it to. Bill summary and status. 112th Congress, 2011 to 2012, S. 1867. Latest title, National Defense Authorization Act 4. This bill, passed late last night in a 93-7 vote, declares the entire USA to be a battleground upon which U.S. military forces can operate with impunity, overriding posse comitatus and granting the military the unchecked power to arrest, detain, interrogate and even assassinate U.S. citizens with impunity. Even Wired magazine was outraged at this bill, reporting, Senate wants the military to lock you up without trial. The detention mandate to use indefinite military detention in terrorism cases isn't limited to foreigners. It's confusing, because two different sections of the bill seem to contradict each other. but in the judgment of the University of Texas Robert Chesney, a nonpartisan authority on military detention, U.S. citizens are included in the grant of detention authority. The passage of this law is nothing less than an outright declaration of war against the American people by the military-connected power elite. If this is signed into law, it will shred the remaining tenets of the Bill of Rights and unleash upon America a total military dictatorship, complete with secret arrests, secret prisons, unlawful interrogations, indefinite detainment without ever being charged with a crime, the torture of Americans, and even the legitimate assassination of U.S. citizens right here on American soil. If you have not yet woken up to the reality of the police state we've been warning you about, I hope you realize we are fast running out of time. Once this becomes law, you have no rights whatsoever in America, no due process, no First Amendment speech rights, no right to remain silent, nothing. The U.S. Senate does not want us to speak. I suspect even now orders are being shouted into telephones and men with guns will soon be on their way. Why? Because while the truncheon may be used in lieu of conversation, words will always retain their power. Words offer the means to meaning, and for those who will listen, the enunciation of truth. And the truth is, there is something terribly wrong with this country. Isn't there? Cruelty and injustice, intolerance and oppression. And where once you had the freedom to object, to think and speak as you saw fit, you now have censors and systems of surveillance coercing your conformity and soliciting your submission. How did this happen? Who's to blame? Well, certainly there are those who are more responsible than others, and they will be held accountable. But again, truth be told, if you're looking for the guilty, you need only look into a mirror. I know why you did it. I know you were afraid. Who wouldn't be? War, terror, disease. There were a myriad of problems which conspired to corrupt your reason and rob you of your common sense. Fear got the best of you, and in your panic, you turned to the now president in command, Barack Obama. He promised you order. He promised you peace. And all he demanded in return was your silent, obedient consent.
Hi, and you're now with the Forerunner Chronicles. All right, everybody, listen. Don't mind the background right now, because I'm on the road, but the information that I have to share with you is of such great importance, I couldn't wait until I got back into the studio so that you could become aware of what's getting ready to come down the pike and overtake many people as an overwhelming flood of surprise. Now, while the majority of the world is so fixed on the possibility of the passage of the Stop Online Piracy Act, SOPA for short, or the Protect IP Act, which is PIPA for short. And by the way, these are two very important pieces of legislation that we need to stand united against, because if they are passed into law, they will radically change the format of the free internet as we presently know it. But did you know that as these laws are holding the attention of the masses, there is right now legislation that is moving with rapidity through the United States Congress that will give our government in the United States of America the ability to strip United States citizens of their citizenship? If you don't know what I'm talking about the Enemy Expatriation Act. The Enemy Expatriation Act. And it will be able to do exactly what I just told you. Strip United States citizens of their citizenship. Now, we know that on December 31st of 2011, President Obama signed into law the National Defense Administration Act, which is a piece of legislation that now gives the military of our country the ability to lock up United States citizens in military detention facilities for an indefinite period of time. But in the signing statement that President Obama released with this controversial law, he stated a promise to us, telling us that he will never use the NDAA. He will never use the ability to lock up United States citizens for an indefinite period of time under his administration. But with the passage of the Enemy Expatriation Act, he won't need to do that, because the Enemy Expatriation Act will strip you of your citizenship. Therefore, you'll no longer be a citizen. So if he locks you up indefinitely, he'll be keeping his promise to you. He won't be locking up an American citizen. He won't be locking up an American citizen. He'll be locking up an enemy combatant. This is serious. Now take a look at this. Under Section 2 of the Enemy Expatriation Act, we are told that individuals that are found engaging in and are purposely and materially supporting hostilities against the United States, that they are chargeable and can have their citizenship stripped from them. But what type of broad definition is this? I mean, let's stop for a moment and think very rationally about this, ladies and gentlemen. Currently, I am engaged in purposefully making a video to speak out against our government even thinking of passing into law a piece of legislation that is so antagonistic against its own citizens. And this video could very much so be used against me as material evidence in a court of law, and I'm sure it will be at some given point in time. But the question still stands, Mr. President and Mr. Joe Lieberman. Are my actions truly hostile against the United States, the country that I was born in, the country that I love, the country that has a constitution that is second to none, a constitution that protects my ability to speak in this fashion? Of course I'm not hostile against the United States of America. I love the United States of America. But I know factually that right now the United States of America doesn't love me. The Bible tells us, ladies and gentlemen, in the book of Revelation chapter 13 and verse 11, "And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon." A beast in Bible prophecy is symbolic of a kingdom or a political power. We find that information in the book of Daniel chapter 7 and verse 17 and Daniel chapter 7 and verse 23. We are told that this political power, this nation, this country came up out of the earth, which is symbolic of a sparsely populated or sparsely settled area. And when this nation comes up into existence, we are told that it has two horns like a lamb. Horns in Bible prophecy are symbolic of powers. We find this information in the book of Habakkuk, chapter 3 and verse 4, which tells us, "His brightness was as the light. He had horns coming out of his hand, and therein was the hiding of his power." These are powers we're talking about. But what type of powers? Lamb-like powers. Remember, they were two horns like a lamb. Well, what is the lamb symbolic of the Bible in the Bible? I told you before, but I'll tell you again. In the book of John, chapter 1 and verse 29, we are told, "And the next day John seeth Jesus coming unto him, and saith, Behold, the Lamb of God which taketh away the sin of the world." The lamb is a symbol of Jesus Christ. That means when this nation comes up into existence in a very sparsely populated or a very sparsely settled area, it will profess to be Christian in nature. It will profess to promote the principles of Christ. We are talking about no other nation other than the United States of America. But we are also told that it would speak as a dragon. We are watching the very last death throes of our nation. We're watching the very last unfoldings of Bible prophecy. But as we are watching the final unfoldings of Bible prophecy, as we are watching the United States of America move to speak as a dragon, which means that our country will set in place legislation that will carry out the very insidious designs of the devil to make war with those who keep the commandments of God and the testimony of Jesus Christ, according to Revelation 12 and verse 17. Know also that Jesus Christ is making his final moves as well. For the Bible tells us in the book of Romans chapter 8 and verse 34, "Who is he that condemneth? It is Christ that has died, yea, rather that is risen again, who is even at the right hand of the throne of God, who also maketh intercession for us." Then in Hebrews chapter 8 verses 1 and 2, the Bible goes on to say, "Now of all the things which we have spoken, this is the sum. We have such an high priest, which is set at the right hand of the throne of the majesties in the heaven, a minister of the sanctuary and of the true tabernacle, which the Lord pitched and not man." Jesus Christ is officiating as our high priest in the most holy place of the heavenly sanctuary, and he is making intercession for our sins. He is pleading his blood before the Father, that we might be cleansed of all of our unrighteousness, that our thoughts might be transformed, that our speech might be purified. The ways that we live our lives can be transformed in the power power of His Spirit, if we will accept Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior, if we'll accept the power of the Holy Spirit to make us the sons and daughters of God, if we will turn away from our sins today. And you might say, Forerunner, I hear you talking about this same information every video. Well, the reason why I keep on talking about this information is because the Bible tells us in 2 Peter chapter 1 and verse 12, wherefore I will not be negligent to put you always in remembrance of these things, though ye already know them, and be established in the present truth. The Bible tells us that the true preacher of righteousness, although he knows that the people of God and that the world might know certain information, he will always repeat this information so you can be established in the present truth. And presently, the truth is that a time of trouble such as never was is getting ready to come upon planet Earth. Presently, the truth is Jesus Christ is getting ready to take off his high priestly garments and to place on the robes of vengeance. And presently, the truth is the mark of the beast is coming, and you need to make a decision. Choose you this day whom ye will serve.